Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding out that 10% of your money vanished overnight. You'd probably call the police. But what if I told you something is quietly taking money from you every single year, completely legally? Not a scammer, not a hacker, not a thief, the financial system itself. And the craziest part? Most people don't even know it's happening. Hi guys, today we're talking about the biggest financial scam in history, a system that has existed for more than a century and still affects billions of people today. But to understand it, we need to go back in time. In the early 1900s, money worked very differently. A dollar wasn't just a piece of paper, it was backed by gold. In theory, you could take your dollars to a bank and exchange them for real gold. Because of that, governments couldn't print unlimited amounts of money. Every new dollar needed to be backed by something valuable. But eventually, everything changed. Governments needed more money. Wars were expensive. Infrastructure projects were expensive. Debt was growing, and the gold system limited how much money could be created. Slowly, the world moved towards something called fiat currency. Fiat money is different. It isn't backed by gold. It's backed by trust. The dollar in your wallet today has value because people believe it has value. And as long as that trust exists, the system keeps working. But this created a new power, money printing. When governments need to stimulate the economy or support financial markets or manage debt, new money can be created. Now here's the important question. If creating money is so easy, why not make everyone a millionaire? The answer is simple. Money and wealth are not the same thing. Imagine tomorrow every person on earth receives $1 million. Would everyone become rich? No, because prices would rise. A burger that costs $5 today could cost $10 tomorrow, then $15, then $20. Not because the burger became more valuable, but because the money became less valuable. Well, that process is called inflation. And inflation acts like a hidden tax. You don't see it directly, but you feel its effects every year. Your savings buy less. Your paycheck buys less. Your purchasing power slowly disappears. And the most dangerous part? It happens slowly. So slowly that most people never notice it. Now let's talk about banks. Most people think banks simply lend out money that other people deposit. But the reality is much more complicated. When banks issue loans, new money enters the economy. Debt expands. Money supply grows. And the financial system becomes larger. That's why modern economies are heavily built on debt. Mortgages, student loans, car loans, credit cards, business loans. Debt is everywhere. And here's where things get interesting. When new money is created, it doesn't reach everyone at the same time. The first people who usually benefit are banks, large corporations, governments, and wealthy investors. Why does that matter? Because they receive the new money before prices fully adjust. They can buy stocks, businesses, real estate, and other assets while prices are still relatively lower. But by the time that money reaches ordinary people, prices have often already increased. Food costs more, housing costs more, healthcare costs more, education costs more, everything costs more. And this creates a powerful effect. The wealth gap grows. The wealthy often own assets, stocks, businesses, real estate, private investments. When new money enters the system, these assets often increase in value. Meanwhile, many ordinary people primarily hold cash, and cash loses purchasing power during inflation. This is why two people can earn similar incomes, but end up with completely different financial futures. One person owns assets, the other only saves cash. Over time, the difference becomes enormous. One person's wealth grows, the other struggles to keep up with rising prices. And that's why so many people feel like they're running on a treadmill. They work harder, earn more money, get raises. Yet somehow, financial freedom still feels far away, because they're playing a game without understanding the rules. Now, does this mean money printing is always evil? No, the financial system is complex. Governments use these tools for many reasons, but understanding how the system works is essential, because once you understand it, you stop looking at money the same way. You realize that simply saving cash may not be enough. You begin thinking about assets, investments, businesses, skills, things that can grow faster than inflation, because the people who understand the system often benefit from it, and the people who ignore it usually pay the price. So maybe the biggest financial scam isn't that the system exists. Maybe it's that millions of people go through life without ever learning how it works. And now, I want to ask you something. If you could only own one asset for the next 20 years, what would it be? But the story doesn't end there. The real turning point came in 1971, and that's when the rules of money changed forever. In 1971, US President Richard Nixon made a historic announcement. He ended the link between the US dollar and gold. That meant dollars could no longer be exchanged for gold. And from that moment on, the dollar officially became a fiat currency. Governments suddenly had much more flexibility, and over time, the money supply began growing faster than ever before. But then something strange happened. People's salaries were increasing, yet houses were becoming more expensive. Education was becoming more expensive. Healthcare was becoming more expensive. And many people thought that they were moving forward. But in reality, the system was moving faster than they were. Then came 2008. The world experienced a massive financial crisis. Banks started collapsing. Markets crashed. People lost their jobs. Millions lost their homes. And what did governments do? They created even more money. Interest rates were lowered. Banks were supported. And huge amounts of new money entered the economy. The system survived, but debt kept growing. Then came 2020, and everything accelerated. During the pandemic, governments created trillions of dollars. stimulus checks, relief programs, emergency spending. And at first, it seemed like a good thing. But a few years later, inflation surged. Grocery bills increased. Rent increased. Cars became more expensive. Homes became even more expensive. And something else happened too. Asset prices exploded. Stocks went up. Real estate went up. Business valuations went up. And that's when the wealth gap became even larger. People who owned assets became wealthier. People who held only cash lost purchasing power. That's why some people call inflation a hidden tax. A tax you never directly pay, but one that affects you every single day. Now, this doesn't mean the system is evil, and it doesn't mean everything is a conspiracy, but it does mean one thing. If you don't understand the money game, you can't expect to win it. Smart people don't just save money. They learn, they invest, they build assets, and they try to stay ahead of inflation. Because in the end, financial freedom doesn't come from earning more money. It comes from understanding how money works. And now I want to ask you something. In your opinion, what is the most powerful asset a person can own today?